before the Old West called him a killer. Kia, before America screamed his name in blood-red headlines, he was just a skinny boy, with light eyes and a soft voice. His name was Henry McCarty. He was probably born on November 23, 1859, in New York City. Though some say Indianapolis, Indiana. There's no birth certificate, no baptism record. Billy was born just how the Old West liked it, in the shadows of uncertainty. His mother's name was Catherine McCarty, an Irish immigrant. The name of his father was never confirmed. Catherine raised her two sons alone, Henry and Joseph. They moved westward, first to Indiana, then Kansas, and finally New Mexico Territory, hoping the dry air would treat Catherine's tuberculosis. In Santa Fe, she married a man named William Antrim. Harsh, unstable, Billy never accepted him as a father. The family settled in Silver City, a mining town. And there, tragedy knocked on the door. Catherine died in 1874, consumed by illness. Billy was only 14 years old. After that, Billy was on his own. The stepfather disappeared. His brother went his own way. Billy survived by washing dishes, mucking out stables, sleeping in cheap boarding houses. His first crime, stealing food at age 15. Then he stole clothing and 2 pistols from a Chinese laundry. He was arrested and escaped for the first time. He fled New Mexico, wandered into Arizona, hustling to survive. There, his first documented killing happened. Frank Wendy Cahill, a drunken blacksmith, constantly mocked and bullied him. One day, Cahill threw Billy to the ground in front of other cowboys. Humiliated, Billy pulled his revolver and fired. Cahill died the next day. Billy ran again, and once more, was reborn under a new name. Some called him Henry Antrim, after his stepfather. Others, William Bonney, a false name he would adopt later, but the press gave him the name that stuck, Billy the Kid. Billy, short for William. The Kid, because he still looked like a boy. But this kid was becoming the living symbol of young violence. By 18, he had already killed and was wanted in 2 territories. Then came a man named John Tunstall, an idealistic English rancher. Tunstall saw something in Billy, not a killer, but a boy in search of something no one had ever given him, a home, a purpose. Billy became a foreman, rode for the ranch. He had a horse, a gun, and for the first time, hope, but in the West. Hope was like gunpowder. All it took was a single spark. On February 18, 1878, John Tunstall was gunned down by men hired by a corrupt business-political alliance led by Lawrence Murphy and James Dolan. The assassins wore badges. They were protected by courts, judges, governors. Billy didn't cry. When he saw Tunstall's body, he clenched his fists, and swore revenge. Alongside other loyal ranch hands, he formed a group. They called themselves the Regulators. Justice in Lincoln County, New Mexico, wore a sheriff's badge and banker's smile. The law was bought, sold, and whispered in back rooms, and those who defied it were buried silently. That's what happened to John Tunstall. His killers were protected. The courts didn't care. So Billy the Kid decided to fight the way the West taught him, with hot lead. The men who joined Billy weren't saints, They were cowboys, drifters, former soldiers, fugitives, but they had one thing in common: loyalty to Tunstall and thirst for justice. They became the Regulators. Among them, Richard Dick Brewer, tactical leader; Jose Chavez, Y. Chavez, quiet and deadly; Charlie Baldry, close friend of Billy; Doc Scurlock, Frank and George Coe, and others. They carried court-signed warrants, but what they delivered wasn't arrest. It was war. On March 9, 1878, the group caught William Morton, one of Tunstall's killers. He surrendered. Later found dead, shot in the back. In response, Sheriff William Brady, openly corrupt, declared the Regulators criminals. The game had flipped, and the line between justice and vengeance disappeared in the dust. On April 1, 1878. The Regulators lay hidden in brush along Lincoln's main street. Their target, Sheriff William Brady. As Brady and his deputies passed by, the regulators opened fire. Brady dropped in the dirt, riddled with bullets. A deputy was killed too. Billy ran to the body to retrieve a warrant and nearly died. The Lincoln County War had begun. What followed was chaos. Ambushes, house raids, bar shootouts. Then came the bloodiest week of all, July 1878. The regulators took shelter in lawyer Alexander McSween's house. Murphy's men, backed by U.S. soldiers, surrounded it. For 5 days, bullets flew. Buildings burned. Civilians hid underground. In the end, McSween was gunned down, unarmed. Other regulators died too, but Billy escaped through the darkness, once again slipping out of death's hands. Asterisk, after the war, Murphy's men still held power, but Billy's image had grown. Some saw him as an outlaw, others a rebel hero. New Mexico's governor, Lew Wallace, yes, the same man who wrote Ben-Hur, offered Billy a deal. Testify, get a pardon. Billy agreed. He testified, but the pardon never came. Wallace vanished. The government turned its back. Billy became a fugitive again. Every legend needs a rival. For Billy the Kid, it was a man with a badge and a past. Patrick Floyd Garrett, tall, lean, once a cowboy, once a friend, now a sheriff with orders to hunt. In November 1880, Garrett was elected sheriff of Lincoln County. His mission, bring in Billy, dead or alive. Billy hid in Fort Sumner, sheltered by locals and old friends. But Garrett knew him, knew his habits, knew where he slept, drank, smiled. On December 23, 1880, Garrett surrounded Billy's hideout in Stinking Springs. After a short gunfight, Billy surrendered, calm, smiling. One deputy later said, he looked more like an opera singer than a killer, but those eyes, they burned. Asterisk Billy was tried in Santa Fe, charged with the murder of Sheriff Brady in April 1881. At 21 years old, he was sentenced to hang. The date, May 13th, in Lincoln, the same town that started it all. But fate wasn't done with him yet. Asterisk on April 28th, 1881, Billy escaped jail. Somehow, he slipped his cuffs, seized a deputy's gun, and killed both guards. He descended the courthouse stairs on the balcony. He fired into the crowd to hold them back. Then, he rode off. Once again, the government was humiliated. The boy had escaped a noose asterisk for weeks. Billy was a ghost. He slept in caves, danced at parties, vanished by dawn. Rumor says he wrote the governor, I held my end. Where's my pardon, number? Reply came. Instead, Garrett came again, this time in the dark. Asterisk, on July 13, 1881. Garrett crept into Pete Maxwell's house in Fort Sumner. Billy arrived around midnight. He had just killed a cow to cook dinner. Still carried the bloodied knife. He saw a shadow in the room. Whispered quietness. Who is it? 2 shots rang out. One hit his chest. He fell, never knowing who fired. A lamp was lit, and there he was, Billy the Kid, dead on the floor. Death came quiet, in the dark. Billy the Kid lay on Maxwell's floor. Bullet through his heart. No speech, no duel. Just one Spanish question, qui or unis, followed by a shot that ended the West's most feared name. He was 21 years old, and yet his story was just beginning. Asterisk the next day, headlines screamed, the kid is dead. In Fort Sumner, people wept. Housewives hid their sons. Cowboys stared silently at the saloon door. Billy was an outlaw, but he was also their own. He was buried next to friends Tom Folliard and Charlie Baudry in a plain grave, no stone. For years, cows trampled it. No one cared. Asterisk. Then came the questions. Was it really him? The room had been dark. Garrett told 2 conflicting versions. Some said the body was too tall in 1948. An old man named Brushy Bill Roberts came forward in Texas, claimed, I'm Billy the Kid. I lived. K. He begged for a pardon. It was denied. K died soon after. Was he lying? Some say yes. Others aren't sure. Asterisk. Billy's story grew louder over time. Films, books, songs. The Pale Boy became a national myth. To some, a cold-blooded killer. To others, a tragic rebel forged by injustice. But one thing's certain. He defied powerful men and smiled while doing it. He lived fast, young, and never begged forgiveness. Asterisk. Today, his grave is fenced off to keep tourists from stealing stone chips. Flowers still appear. Letters, too, historians debate. Photographs are examined. But records don't matter anymore. What remains? The feeling that this world never tamed that boy. Billy wasn't born a villain. He was shaped by the chaos of the West, raised in pain, forged in gunfire. And even after all the bullets, even after all the death, one final whisper still rides. The desert wind, Guyanese,